Hello, everyone. I'm Brownfield anchor reporter Rhiannon Branch. We are live from the Farm Progress Show in booth 605 with the Illinois Corn Growers Association and Illinois Soybean Association. Got a couple of gentlemen joining me, and I will let them introduce themselves. Mark?
Yes, I'm Mark Reed from Central Illinois, just 40 miles north of Peoria. We grow corn and soybeans, and it's a beautiful day at the Farm Progress Show, so we're glad to be here today.
Mark, did you order this weather?
I sure did.
It's very nice today, impressively. So we thank you for that. Hopefully in 2 years you can do the same thing.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, on the weather. Hi, I'm Don Duvall, and I'm currently serving on the U.S. Grains Council, formerly with the Illinois Corn Marketing Board. I have a farm in southeastern Illinois where we grow corn and soybeans and occasionally wheat.
Very good. Well, this segment we want to talk about trade and livestock initiatives for both of your associations, and we'll start on the livestock side. Let's talk a little bit about what each of your organizations are doing individually and together to partner with the livestock industry in Illinois.
Okay, well, we like to partner with anybody that uses soybeans. I'm the Illinois Soybean Director, and of course livestock uses a lot of our soybeans. And we want them to use more, so we want to build these markets. So we like to work with our livestock organizations and also our poultry organizations. So we do some things with them, we support them, some of their meetings, and they're our main life stream for soybean farmers. So we appreciate what they use, and we want to do everything we can to increase the usage of our soybeans and keep our price up.
Like soybeans, Illinois Corn also is involved in partnering with organizations like USAPEC, which is the U.S. Egg and Exporting Council, as well as the USMEF, which is the U.S. Meat Exporters Federation. Additionally, Illinois Corn also partners with the Illinois Beef Association, with the Illinois Pork Producers. They're also involved in the, I think it's called the Illinois Livestock Development
Group?
Yep. So, and that's in an effort to try to get more livestock to eat more soybeans and more corn consumption. So.
Correct, Mark. Part of this is the power of two and how you two organizations, corn and soy, are working together. But livestock, you mentioned, is a big part for corn and soybean farmers. Can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yes, I know both organizations support the livestock industry because beef uses a lot of corn in their industry, so we're just happy to be here to help support them and grow the need for both corn and soybeans. Most everybody that raises soybeans raises corn. I actually raise more corn than soybeans, but I'm on the soybean board, so just glad to be here.
Yeah, livestock's a huge user of both of those grains, and let's talk dollars. I think they attribute the exportation of beef and pork to maybe 11.5–12% of the price of corn. So 41 cents to 50 cents a bushel you can be attributed to pork and beef. So
something you wanted to add, Mark?
No.
No, good. Well, let's talk a little bit about with the U.S. Grains Council side of things, how you guys work with the livestock industry.
Well, the U.S. Grains Council, as the name somewhat implies, is mostly focusing on corn, barley, and sorghum. Additionally, they also do some co-products like DDGSs and ethanol. USAPEC, USMEF are more the national of livestock, but certainly the ethanol, the DDGSs is a part of U.S. Grains' expertise.
But definitely partnering with them on certain issues that affect both industries.
Oh, absolutely. The mission statement of U.S. Grains Council is developing markets and enabling trade, and so anything to that effect is certainly within their wheelhouse.
Yeah, and Illinois Soybean Association also supports them. A lot of their meetings we put money towards, and so anything that promotes soybeans or livestock we want to promote with. And also it's good to have one voice for agriculture. We're not as many agricultural people in politics and so forth, and we are trying to team with our partners for kind of a one voice for agriculture. And that is something that's going to be more important in the future because there's less and less farmers as we farm more acres to try to be more profitable.
Yeah, and speaking of that partnering effect, it's not just the commodity checkoffs that are involved. These agencies, U.S. Grains, those exporting livestock things, also take this money from the producers and partner that with governmental money, and so that hedging makes that even a greater contribution.
Yeah, and one other thing we do we partner with Illinois Pork, and they have a power program, and it actually is kind of we buy pork for the food banks, and very important and a very worthwhile contribution.
Yeah, that Pork Power program has been pretty impressive. I encourage everybody to go and check that out. A lot of what you mentioned there connects back to trade, which is the other conversation we want to have today. We know that's a big opportunity here in Illinois. Let's talk about what your organizations are doing to help increase that opportunity for Illinois farmers.
Yeah, well, we've always sponsored maybe about 35 trade missions to Illinois where we're showing them our farms and so forth. Well, this year we fell short on that, but we did a lot of virtual meetings, which really turned out pretty well. So in the future we might do both because it's good to establish that relationship to get that confidence, and when they're ordering soybeans from us that they know how it's raised, our sustainability, what we're doing as far as the carbon footprint, and so forth, because that seems to be the hot topic, and our farmers are pretty much on top of that and really looking towards that.
Yeah, and Illinois Corn does the same thing. They partner with those organizations. Obviously 40% of the corn is exported, so that market is obviously a huge one, and in fact in Illinois, 50% of the corn is exported. In my part of the state, in the southern Illinois, even higher with the Ohio River, the Mississippi River. I deliver all my corn to a river market, so exports are extremely important to me and my farm.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And that's extremely important to soybeans too. I think over 60% of our soybeans are exported. And with, of course, the major partner being China, we're trying to develop other countries. Egypt is one that's interesting that we're going to, they've increased their usage of soybean whole soybeans by 50% in the last 5 years. So it's a growing market. They want more protein to feed their poultry and their aquaculture. So it's exciting that we've developed new markets, and because we can't always rely on China to be our number one market, although they're going to be for some time the way it looks, hopefully.
Mark, you mentioned it earlier. I'd like for you to touch a little bit more on, those barriers to entry and how COVID-19 kind of impacted that. Therefore, talking about how you guys, didn't stop working on trade just because we couldn't go to those other countries. I'll have you both touch on that.
Yes, we had to shift gears, and at least in the Corn Association and Illinois Soybean Association, we have good leaders that were able to switch. A lot of technical people, more virtual type programs. One that was really interesting was at Steve Pitstick's farm, who is now the chairman of our organization. Was at his farm, took you through planting, growing, and harvest, and it's about a 20-minute ordeal that you can watch on YouTube, or I'm not sure where, but anyway, it's really good for our export people when they look to show them something like that. And at the last GTE meeting in St. Louis, which was a USAC event, Stan Bourne and a director from the Illinois Soybean Association and Kankakee went a live virtual summit at their farm, which was very interesting. And it gave the people that couldn't come to the actual meeting, they could watch that and really get a good idea how we're raising our soybeans.
Yeah, well, you mentioned barriers to different states. There are obviously lots of barriers. Sometimes it's political, sometimes it's tariff related, sometimes it's non-tariff related, like phytosanitary. There's also occasions when there are religious barriers, particularly in the meat exportation. But that's one of the things that both of these organizations do in getting people together and clearing up those problems. you mentioned the COVID barrier. As you well know, farmers were considered essential services, so they didn't stop farming. Neither did U.S. Grains Council. So when you look at the numbers, I think we are currently on schedule to have a record-breaking corn exportation for this year. This higher in barley, higher in sorghum than the previous year. So obviously COVID had an effect, but not a significant effect. Where it had most of the constricting effect would have been in ethanol because there's driving less. So we exported, we export a lot of ethanol to Brazil. They drove less, so about the only thing that was less in exportation was ethanol. The rest of the grains higher than last year, and in the corn's case, a record year. So we cleared that hurdle.
Very good to hear. To kind of sum things up here, I'll let each of you maybe touch on what your top exporting countries are for each of your commodities, and maybe some of the new markets you guys are working on in other countries. Maybe just briefly summarize each of those for us.
Okay, well, China is still our main customer for soybeans. Taiwan is right in there, and Indonesia, and also Egypt is a fast-growing one. So those are probably our top 4 or 5 places that we export to that are important customers.
As far as corn goes, this year it was China. China was the big player in all grains. Previously to this year, Mexico was the corn's biggest importer, and Japan was second. China has overtaken their first in everything. As far as ethanol, Brazil is the number one, as well as Canada. So it depends on the commodity, I guess, is where we're also looking to expand our exports to South Africa.
Well, guys, we could talk trade all day, I know, but we're going to switch gears and let the girls come in and talk about conservation. So I appreciate both of you joining us today, and thank you very much. We'll let the girls join.
All right, thank you.
For those of you just joining us, we are in booth 605, live from the Farm Progress Show. We're here with Illinois Corn Growers Association and the Illinois Soybean Association, getting ready to kick off some girl power here and talk about conservation. So I will let Megan and Abigail introduce themselves.
Great, well thank you, Rhonda. I'm Megan Dwyer. I'm with the Illinois Corn Growers Association. I work a lot with water quality, nutrient loss, conservation, and sustainability initiatives.
And hi, I'm Abigail Peterson for the Illinois Soybean Association as the conservation agronomist, working mainly with farmers and organizations throughout the state on conservation needs and best management practices.
Well, conservation is certainly a big topic right now and something we could talk about all day as well, but let's see if we can kind of get it in a nutshell for everyone. Let's talk about what your vision is for conservation, maybe in the next year, the next few years, both for ISA and Illinois Corn.
Great, yeah. So for Illinois Corn, I think one of our biggest ambitions and goals would be to see new and expanding conservation practices across every acre in Illinois. There's so much opportunity out there. Farmers, we have to be realistic. We are contributing to some of the concerns with nutrient loss across the state, but we are a vital part of that solution as well. So implementing practices and ensuring that everyone's doing their part is what we hope to see happen.
Yeah, and every farmer is on a different journey. We've had farmers who've been doing no-till cover crops for years and years, and farmers who are just beginning. So it's exciting to work with those farmers who have the experience and knowledge to be able to network with other farmers, and but also work with new farmers and their operations and understand all the decisions that go into this, as far as the financial decisions, as long as the agronomic decisions, because it's a whole management change. So adapting any of these practices takes time, and with time and more experience and practice, you get better. So it's all a journey and working together on that, and with all the organizations in Illinois, it's really fun to figure it out together. So.
Well, and I'd say, too, Abigail, we talk about this, most corn farmers are soybean farmers and vice versa. And so really being able to work together and use that synergy to make sure that we've got a solid message, that we're reaching all of our farmers, and show that we've got support from both sides.
Definitely.
For sure, and you just mentioned talking about having to educate and really talk to growers about these new items in conservation, and we'll use this now as an opportunity to do that and talk about some of the programs that each of your organizations are working on to kind of achieve those goals.
Sure, yeah, precision conservation management with Illinois Corn and now partnered with Illinois Soybean Association is a huge one, and it's a really great program that farmers can utilize to really understand the economics going on their fields and really take step by step what practices they can start to influence to start making positive environmental outcomes with also looking at the economics behind those decisions. One of the exciting things with that program as well is their 5-year transition program, because like I said, doing these practices is a process and it can be an immediate physical response on some of your fields as far as erosion, but some long-term results take time. And so with the 5-year transition, you really start to understand within 5 years how these practices are affecting your fields. And with that program as well, it's a setup where we do a split application of the practices so you can see side by side agronomically, when we have these high intensity rainfalls, how is a conventional tilled field being compared to a cover crop no-till field? Or when we have certain pest control issues, or when we have weeds are really fun when we're doing cover crops, because you can definitely see side by side how they compare on the control end. And then that's when you can start looking at your herbicide practices and how many trips you're taking across the field, and you can see the differences. So that's one program that's really exciting. I think that farmers really get a lot of benefit, not only the economics, but also the agronomic side of things. And there's also a program, get involved in the local soil water offices, NRCS offices. Precision conservation really, their specialists do a good job of letting farmers know what in their area is available, because there's a lot of programs that offer incentives for cover crops for certain specific counties. So it's knowing what's out there, which can be overwhelming, but working with Illinois Corn and Illinois Soybean, we can help kind of guide those in the right direction.
Yeah. And so, thinking, we talked about, we'd like to see practices implemented across all acres. And so looking at our state, we're really diverse, north to south. It's a really long state, and everyone's problem is not the same. Even if everyone's in southern Illinois, their problems aren't the same. Every field is different and unique, and so we have to make sure we've got tailored individual ideas and suggestions for those. And so it's thinking about, first of all, what is that problem? So Illinois Corn, we're investing in research. We're trying to figure out in certain areas, certain priority watersheds, what's causing the problem. Then it's looking at, well, what practices might fix that? What might help with that? So we've got different programs. We partner with various groups, conservation groups, as well as other in industry, to provide cost share on cover crops. If you're new to it, you've never experienced cover crops before, what can we do to make that pretty simple? Abigail's done a great job of talking, it's a whole systems change in a process. So if we can do something to make it simple, make it a little more painless, so we offer up to 40 acres of a reduced cover crop program on a winter kill, which means that the mix that we're putting out is not going to overwinter. You don't have to worry about terminating it or having 10-foot tall rye that you're going to try and plant into, which can be a scary thing if you've never done cover crops. We also do programs where we partner with other seed companies, cover crop seed companies across the state, and offer discounts if you're going to purchase. Impact in a positive way your bottom line, that incentive disappears. And so making sure that all of these things piece together and become a positive thing for a farmer to do.
So especially farmers who have been doing some of these practices for their entire lives, we don't necessarily click that this all ties into the climate conversation, which is so big right now. So let's kind of dive into how those farmers can really get involved and help prove that corn and soybeans contribute solutions to these climate change issues.
Sure, yeah, and like I said, there's been farmers are stewards of the land, and they've been doing a lot of these practices for a long time. And it's not only beneficial to their own field and operation, but to the environmental outcomes of water quality and climate. But it is a difficult system also, though, to quantify, because it takes so many variables, and weather being a huge factor in also determining, how much runoff we get in a year versus, if we have a drought. So it changes every year, and it's hard to quantify. But farmers are doing practices that make those positive environmental outcomes. And it's research within the state with the universities, what they're doing to find, is there a certain tonnage of a cover crop that can contribute to a specific load of water quality that will result in a positive outcome. So it's all in still researching these outcomes and what we can do, and what is the, where do we start to see the impact of a practice? Because there's some practices that we do that you can see instant results and know that impact right away, but a lot of these are just, it's a whole system that really takes a long time to start understanding what we're benefiting and be able to quantify it. But you'll start to hear a lot more about it as things like climate and carbon and our footprint become more and more, talked about in the news. But
yeah, and I mean, attending events like Farm Progress Show is a great place to get a lot of information, but we're really fortunate to live in a time where technology is at our fingertips. I mean, I can't tell you how many Facebook groups and social media type areas where farmers can go and connect, and they can work with each other to pool resources and ask questions. Illinois Corn with Illinois Soy, we're part of a group called ISAB, the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership, and a great program there is called Advanced Soil Health Training. So the thought of that is to get in a specified geography, about 30 farmers, farm managers, crop advisors, all together to really dive into the deep science behind soil health, and then allow them to go home and really be those local experts, be that source of information and really support. Having that support system is what's key to make a lot of this work.
Yeah, and it's an exciting way too to also see like new things like a saturated buffer or drainage structures on your tile lines, things that you wouldn't maybe normally have just sitting outside to go look at every day. And so it's a good opportunity to understand how to implement those practices and what you're really seeing on the back end of when you put those in. So it's been a great experience going through that program and all the new technology, like Megan said, like even how to apply cover crops. There's so many different methods, and really it's tool in your toolboxes, because the farmer, they're a meteorologist, they're an entomologist, they're looking at disease. It's the whole spectrum, and it can be a lot. And so when we're educating retailers and soil water offices and government officials, it's all a team effort. And so building those networks and having that community is a big help when we're trying to do things, tackling these big challenges that we have in front of us.
And talking about climate, bringing that up, I think something that we haven't talked about yet is the Illinois nutrient loss reduction strategy. This is kind of a lot of where the why came from. Why are we so interested in these practices right now? Obviously, the soil health, ensuring that we've got a great asset to bring into the next generation, but we've got goals to meet. We have an interim goal coming up in 2025 to reduce our nitrate and phosphorus loss here in the state, and to do that, it's going to take work, and it's going to take implementing these practices. And so if we want to really truly be a part of the climate solution, we need to make sure that these practices are happening at the level they need to.
A lot of this has come up, just recently, and you guys transitioning into these jobs and with the nutrient loss reduction strategy. What kind of adoption increase have you seen in some of these conservation practices, maybe say over the last 5 years?
Yeah, so the adoption's there. The one thing I would say that we're still seeing a challenge over the state is how can we actually measure this? It's been really challenging to find a central database where it's all getting reported and we're being able to adequately track and recognize farmers that are doing these things. So one thing that's been interesting, there was a program, it was a pilot program the last 2 years called the Fall Covers for Spring Savings. So a farmer, if they planted a cover crop that didn't receive cost share dollars, they could get $5 an acre off their crop insurance premium. This is funded through the state. It's actually a line item in our budget, and we had money for 50,000 acres for the last 2 years. This last year, those 50,000 acres were gone within 12 hours. It was fascinating. And so part of that for the application was that you actually had to report your acres to FSA. So we're doing things to try and make changes to see how well we can truly track this. The biennial report for the nutrient loss reduction strategy really goes out and tries to get the pulse of that with the commodity groups, conservation groups, and say, what are you doing boots on the ground? What can you do to quantify? And so it's finding a good system where we can put all of this to make sure that we are being able to truly represent what we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's a journey. So there's been farmers who've been doing this, but even when you start, sometimes we promote, start small on a couple of acres and then expand over time. So it is something that we'd hope to see, as you start to gain practice and experience, you'd expand to more acres. So to the growth of it, we were hoping to see more growth as we continue on, but it can be a slow process, and you can target, and to consider Southern Illinois, there's a whole broad spectrum of how this adapts across the state, because what we're doing in Southern Illinois is different from what Northern Illinois. So it's taking into all those considerations, and so yeah, we hope to see more acres increase across the state, but it's with time and in practice.
And as well, the other thing, the one thing that's constant across the state is we have a high percentage of non-operating landowners.
Yes.
So really being able to engage with the people that own the land as well as the ones that are managing it and are under the care of that land. And so finding ways to make sure that it works for both parties and that our landowners understand what these benefits are and as well as the costs. I mean, there is a cost to these and it has to make sense for those practices to be implemented.
Yeah, when you're sitting down and having those conversations, bringing that up in the lease process and where you can, especially when the farmers out there, they see on their fields where changes could be made and where constant tillage isn't going to be the solution long term, and it's the legacy of that farm, and that's where the conversation with landowners can start to be a serious conversation, because it needs to start now. It's not something you can just wait 10 years and, it start later. You need to start now to start to see the solutions.
Correct, and those farmers who have been doing it forever can, jump in and help some of these ones who are newer to conservation, cover crops, kind of step in and be that mentor. So the final question I kind of want to give you guys as we wrap up here is just where everybody can learn more information. If they're not here at the Farm Progress Show to speak with you guys at booth 605, where can they learn more about these programs and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think, visiting either of our websites, ilcorn.org is a great place to start. If you're on Facebook, check out Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership. Reach out, find a farmer that might be doing practices. They're going to be some of your best resources at a local personal level.
Yeah, definitely. And the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership website also houses a lot of the organizations within the state. It also promotes a lot of the events happening within the state. Our website and the Soy Advisor website is a great start to find some more of the agronomic resources that you need. But we're always here and happy to help and with whatever farmers need.
Abigail, Megan, I appreciate your time today talking about conservation.